You're sitting there feeling ignored, dismissed, and powerless. Every moment you spent hoping, waiting has led to nothing. The silence screams louder than anything he could say. You feel like you're invisible, like your presence doesn't matter. And yet, deep down, you know you're worth so much more than this. But what do you do when you've tried everything? When you've given it your all, and nothing changes? You see, ignoring you isn't the end. It's actually the beginning of something far more powerful than you realize. The power isn't in how much he sees you, it's in how you choose to see yourself. And how you can turn this moment into one that works in your favor. It feels like you're invisible, doesn't it? When he ignores you, the silence is deafening. The absence of acknowledgement weighs heavy. Your mind races, and all you can hear is that small voice whispering, maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I don't matter. You start questioning everything, the way you look, the things you've said, your very worth. You start wondering what you're doing wrong, thinking maybe if you change this or that, he'd finally see you. But what if I told you that this moment, this pain, isn't about you at all? What if it's not about your worth being questioned or diminished, but about his inability to see it? The truth is, his actions or lack thereof are a reflection of him, not you. And you need to understand this now. Recognizing your worth isn't something he has to do for you. It's something you need to do for yourself. Right now you may feel small. Maybe you're feeling unseen, unheard, and undervalued. But I want you to take a deep breath and let go of that. The first step is realizing that your worth is not defined by someone else's recognition. It never was. It can never be. You are not what someone chooses to see. You are not defined by their inability to see the incredible person standing in front of them. You are so much more. When someone ignores you, when they treat you like you're invisible, it is so easy to let it chip away at your self-esteem. The pain feels personal, like you did something wrong, like somehow you weren't enough. But you are. More than enough. It's just that he's blind to it, and that's not your problem. This is where your transformation begins. Realizing that your value never depended on his recognition. I know how hard it is to recognize your worth when someone you care about doesn't acknowledge it. But here's the thing. Your worth has always been there. It was never lost. It was never fragile. It was never something that could be taken from you just because someone else chose not to see it. Your value doesn't change because of someone's behavior. It's constant, it's unshakable, and it's yours to claim, regardless of how anyone else treats you. You don't need anyone else's approval to know that you matter. You don't need anyone to validate your worth, because your worth comes from you. It's about understanding that you are valuable, that you are deserving of love, respect, and everything that you've been waiting for. Your value is rooted in who you are, not in how someone else chooses to treat you. This is where the power shifts. When you start to recognize that your worth isn't dependent on someone's attention or approval, you stop seeking validation outside of yourself. You stop looking to others to tell you who you are. You start defining yourself. You decide what you're worth, and you make it clear not to anyone else but to yourself first. The truth is, when you start recognizing your own worth, your energy changes. You no longer feel the need to chase after someone's affection or attention. You stop dimming your light, hoping they'll notice. You shine because you know you are already enough. And that's when the magic happens. You stop giving away your power to someone who doesn't see you for the treasure that you are. You start walking with the confidence of someone who knows their value, who doesn't need anyone else's permission to feel worthy. I know it's not easy to feel this way when you're in the middle of pain. But this moment, as painful as it is the turning point. It starts with you. And when you begin to recognize your own value, you'll find that everything else starts to fall into place. The right people will see you, the right opportunities will open up, and the right energy will come into your life. Not because you've changed for them, but because you finally embraced who you truly are. You are more than enough. You always have been. Now it's time to recognize it for yourself. And when you do, you'll never let anyone else define your worth again. It's maddening, isn't it? You've put yourself out there, vulnerable, open, invested, and yet the silence is deafening. The person you care about ignores you, and it feels like a punch to your gut every time. Your mind starts spinning. What did I do wrong? Why am I being ignored? And the emotions, they rise up: anger, frustration, sadness, and you feel trapped, like your peace of mind is tied to their response, or worse, their indifference. You're no longer in control. Your emotions they're running the show, and it feels like you're losing yourself in the chaos. But here's the truth. This moment, this struggle isn't about them. It's about you. You have the power to stop this cycle. You have the power to reclaim your peace. True power doesn't lie in how you react to their actions. It lies in how you choose to control your own emotions, no matter what they do. Emotional detachment is not about shutting down, about pretending you don't feel. It's not about becoming numb or cold. It's about recognizing your emotions without letting them hijack your sense of self. It's about standing in the face of their indifference, acknowledging the hurt, the frustration, but not letting that dictate your worth, your mood, or your peace of mind. It's easy to become emotionally tethered to someone else's actions, to let their behavior dictate how you feel. When they ignore you, it feels personal. It feels like a reflection of your worth. If they don't notice me, maybe I'm not good enough. The problem is, the moment you let someone else control your emotions, you've handed them your power. You've allowed their behavior to define your feelings. And that's a dangerous place to be. You're giving someone else the ability to shape your mood, your happiness, and your peace. You don't need their validation to feel good about yourself. You don't need them to acknowledge you to know that you matter. You were never meant to be defined by someone else's actions. When you attach yourself emotionally to someone else's behavior, you're tying your sense of self-worth to something outside of yourself. And that is a never-ending road to frustration. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you don't feel the hurt. It means that you learn to observe your feelings instead of being controlled by them. When someone ignores you, you'll feel pain. You'll feel frustration. But the power is in choosing to feel those emotions without letting them overwhelm you. You don't need their acknowledgement to feel whole. You don't need them to treat you the way you want to be treated to know that you're worthy of love and respect. This is a shift in mindset. It's a moment where you stop giving your emotional control to someone who doesn't even realize how much power they've had over you. Instead, you take that control back. You say, I am not going to let their behavior decide how I feel about myself. This is where you begin to rise. This is where you begin to find your peace, not in what they do, but in how you choose to respond. It's going to take time. You'll slip back into old habits. There will be moments where their indifference hits you hard and you'll feel the sting. But the more you practice emotional detachment, the easier it becomes. You'll get better recognizing your emotions, feeling them, and then choosing not to let them take over. You'll learn that your peace, your happiness is not tied to their actions. It's yours to control. And here's the breakthrough. When you detach emotionally, when you stop needing their validation to feel okay, something incredible happens. You become free. You stop living in reaction to their moods and actions. You stop waiting for them to acknowledge you in order to feel good about yourself. You become independent of their behavior. Your emotional state doesn't depend on them anymore. You have reclaimed your power. Emotional detachment is a way to regain control over your life. It's not about cutting off your feelings. It's about realizing that you get to decide how you respond to those feelings. You don't have to be at the mercy of anyone else's indifference. You are in charge of your peace. And when you realize that, you'll find that the power was inside you all along. You've been there, haven't you? Waiting, hoping, wishing for their attention. There's this quiet ache that sits in your chest like a constant pull, needing their validation to feel complete. You give your energy, your time, your love, and yet something is missing. Something feels empty. It's as though you've handed over your power, and in return you're left with nothing but the need for more. The more you give, the more you feel like you're losing yourself. It's draining, isn't it? But here's the truth. This isn't your strength. When you rely on someone else's attention or approval to define your worth, you're building your foundation on something unstable. It's like standing on sand, waiting for the tide to carry you away. And no matter how hard you try to hold on, you keep slipping. You're not meant to stand on someone else's shifting emotions. You're meant to stand tall on your own. Independence isn't just about being alone or doing everything by yourself. It's about knowing that you are enough, whether someone validates you or not. Your worth does not depend on someone else seeing it. Your strength is not something that should be determined by anyone else's approval. It's time to realize that your power was always yours. You just forgot it for a moment. You've spent so much of your life tying your worth to the way others see you, the way they treat you, the way they respond to you. It feels like you're constantly seeking something from them, something that you believe will make you feel whole. But that's not the answer. You're giving away your peace, your joy, your power to someone else. And every time they pull away or don't give you what you need, it leaves you questioning yourself. Am I not good enough? Do I matter? But you do matter. And the truth is, you're looking in the wrong place for the answer. The power to feel whole, to feel valued, has always been inside of you. It was never meant to come from them. It's time for you to reclaim your independence. This isn't just about being able to stand alone. It's about standing tall and strong without needing anyone to tell you your worth. Think about the last time you felt incomplete because of someone else's actions. When you were waiting for them to acknowledge you, to love you, to give you what you thought you needed. How long did you let that dictate your mood, your energy, your entire day? How many times did you give them the power to make or break your sense of self? Now imagine a life where you don't need anyone else's approval to feel worthy. Imagine standing in your own truth, knowing that you don't need external validation to feel complete. That's where your power lies. In that moment when you decide that you are enough, exactly as you are, and that you don't need anyone else to tell you that, everything changes. Independence. Real emotional independence is the ability to stand strong and whole regardless of what's going on around you. It's knowing that your worth isn't tied to someone else's opinion of you. It's about having the strength to say, I am enough. Not because they told me I am, but because I believe it for myself. This is the game changer. When you stand in your own power, when you reclaim your independence, something incredible happens. You stop needing people to validate you. You stop chasing approval. You stop letting someone else's actions control your happiness. You begin to realize that you are not dependent on anyone else to feel whole, because you are already complete. You've always been. This isn't about building walls or closing yourself off from others. It's about giving yourself the space to breathe, to exist fully in your own skin without needing anyone's permission. It's about being free from the constant need for validation, knowing that you are worthy, loved, and enough, whether or not anyone else recognizes it. And when you reach that place, when you reclaim your independence, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing. You stop trying to fit yourself into spaces that were never meant for you. And you begin to attract the right people, the right opportunities, the right energy, because you are standing in your own power. And that is magnetic. So if you're feeling lost, if you've been relying on someone else to define you, remember this: you are the foundation of your worth. You don't need anyone's approval to be whole. You have everything you need inside of you to stand tall and proud, exactly as you are. The moment you reclaim that independence, the moment you realize that your value doesn't depend on anyone else, you will begin to feel the freedom, the peace, and the strength that has always been yours. It starts with you, always. You feel it, don't you? The silence that hangs heavy between you like an unspoken weight. His indifference, it hits harder than anything he could say. You're left alone with your thoughts, wondering why he's pulling away, questioning what you've done to deserve being ignored. The more you wait, the more that ache grows. You find yourself desperately trying to read between the lines to figure out what it is that you're missing. But here's the truth: his ignoring you isn't about your worth. It's not about you at all. What you're seeing isn't strength, it's insecurity. It's his inability to deal with his own emotions, his own struggles. When someone ignores you, it's not a reflection of who you are, but of where they are emotionally. They're trying to regain control in their own way, and instead of addressing their own issues, they try to silence the one who makes them feel vulnerable. They ignore you not because you're not worth it, but because they're afraid. Afraid of feeling too much, afraid of being seen for who they really are. And that's where you come in. The moment you stop internalizing their actions, that's when you regain control. When you stop letting their behavior dictate your emotional state, that's when you begin to shift the power dynamic. Because here's what you need to realize. The way someone treats you says more about them than it does about you. You've been caught in a cycle where you let his actions define your mood. You base your worth on how he interacts with you, whether he acknowledges you, notices you, or shows you affection. But you've got to break free from that cycle. You don't need his approval to feel good about yourself. His silence, it's not a verdict on you, it's his way of coping, or more likely avoiding his own emotions. And that, my dear, is not your problem to solve. The power dynamic has been out of balance, hasn't it? You've allowed his actions to dictate your emotional landscape. When he ignores you, you feel small. You feel less than, as if his behavior is the measure of your value. But this is where you get to take back control. You get to shift that dynamic from one of submission, where his indifference holds all the power, to one of strength, where you stand tall regardless of what's happening around you. How do you shift this? First, you stop focusing on him. You stop trying to figure out what he's thinking, why he's ignoring you, or how you can fix it. Stop investing all your emotional energy in trying to make sense of his behavior. Instead, put that energy into yourself. Ask yourself, what do I need right now to feel whole? How do I regain my power, my confidence, regardless of what he's doing? This isn't about shutting down your feelings, it's about regaining control of them. When you stop needing someone else to determine your worth, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster that comes with their actions. You stop measuring your value by their responses and start measuring it by your own understanding of who you are. Start doing things that make you feel good. Spend time with people who lift you up, invest in your passions, and prioritize your own happiness. When you redirect your focus, when you start filling your life with things that nourish your soul, something incredible happens. You become the one who defines your worth, not anyone else. And here's the real shift. When you stop letting his behavior control your emotional state, you'll notice something amazing. You'll stop caring about his indifference. It won't affect you the way it once did, because you'll realize that his actions are a reflection of his struggles, not your value. You'll stop waiting for him to notice you, to validate you, because you'll know deep in your soul that you don't need him to see your worth for it to be real. When you take back your power, when you shift the focus from him to you, you'll find that you become less invested in how he treats you. Instead, you'll become more invested in how you treat yourself, how you respect yourself, and how you show up for yourself every single day. And when that shift happens, when you stop reacting to his behavior and start owning your own emotional landscape, that's when you truly begin to see your strength. You no longer give him the power to define your worth. You take control, and in that control, you'll find a peace that comes from within. A peace that doesn't rely on anyone else's approval, but on the strength you've always had inside you. You've been there, you feel invisible, you give your time, your energy, your attention, hoping for even a little acknowledgement. But no matter how much you try, how much you reach out, it's like you're not seen. It's like you don't matter to them. And you feel that weight, don't you? That ache in your chest that tells you you're not enough, that you're not getting what you deserve. You feel the instinct to chase, to make them see you, to fight for that validation. But I need you to listen carefully to this. Real confidence doesn't need to chase. We've been taught that confidence means making noise, being seen, fighting for attention. But the truth is, true confidence isn't loud. It's quiet, steady, and undeniable. And when you start to understand that, everything changes. You see, when you're constantly looking for validation from others, chasing their attention, hoping they'll notice you, it's like you're handing over your power. You're giving them control over your peace, your worth. You're allowing their indifference or recognition to decide how you feel about yourself. And in that moment, you're losing your sense of self. You're becoming defined by someone else's actions. That's not confidence. That's desperation. Real confidence isn't about fighting to be noticed. It's about knowing deep down that you are enough without needing anyone else to confirm it. It's about standing in your own truth and owning who you are, whether anyone else sees it or not. When you stop chasing, that's when you start to attract. Think about it. When you're secure in yourself, when you know your worth, you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You're not chasing after someone's approval because you've already given yourself permission to be exactly who you are. That's when the real magic happens. You become the kind of person people want to be around, not because you're loud or desperate for attention, but because you exude an undeniable quiet strength. Subtle confidence isn't about arrogance. It's not about walking into a room and demanding attention. It's about the way you carry yourself, the way you stand tall, the way you speak, the way you move. It's the inner peace that radiates from someone who doesn't need validation to feel good about themselves. It's the quiet power of someone who is secure in their own skin, who understands that they are worthy regardless of anyone else's opinion. It's about knowing exactly who you are and not needing to shout it to the world. When you embrace this quiet confidence, something profound happens. You stop seeking validation outside of yourself. You stop measuring your worth by how others treat you. You stop needing someone else's recognition to feel seen, to feel loved, to feel valuable. Instead, you realize that the only validation you need is your own. And when you give that to yourself, it shifts everything. You no longer feel invisible. You stop feeling like you have to chase after people or situations that don't align with who you truly are. And the more you stand in that quiet confidence, the more people start to notice. Not because you're forcing it, but because your energy is magnetic. You don't need to scream to be heard. Your presence speaks for itself. People are drawn to that. Not because you need them to be, but because you're no longer trying to prove your worth. You've already proven it to yourself. And that's the kind of power that doesn't need to shout. So what does it look like to build this subtle confidence? It starts with letting go of the need for external validation. It's about taking a step back from the constant chase and asking yourself, who am I without anyone else's opinion? It's about realizing that your worth is inherent, not based on someone else's recognition. When you start to lean into this truth, you'll find that the things you once sought so desperately start to come to you naturally. Relationships, opportunities, respect, they start to find you not because you're fighting for them, but because you're standing in your own power. You've stopped chasing. You've stopped waiting for someone else to tell you you're enough. You've already told yourself. That's when the shift happens. You stop being defined by others. You start defining yourself. And in that you find the kind of confidence that no one can take from you. The kind of confidence that draws people in, even when you're not trying. The kind of confidence that says, I am enough, exactly as I am, and that truth is undeniable. You've been there, haven't you? You're pouring everything you have into someone, waiting for a glimpse of acknowledgement, for a sign that they care. And when they ignore you, when they don't give you what you're desperately seeking, it feels like the world is slipping away. You feel the need to chase, to plead, to make them see you, to make them understand your worth. You feel the desperation rising inside of you, the instinct to fight for their attention, to beg for their affection. But here's the truth. Desperation never works. It only pushes people further away. I know how it feels. That longing, that emptiness when you feel like you're not seen, not valued, not recognized. You convince yourself that if you just try harder, if you just give a little more, they'll see you the way you've always wanted. But what you don't realize in those moments is that you are giving away your power. You are allowing their indifference to control your emotional state. You're sacrificing your peace, your sense of self, and your dignity, all in the name of seeking validation from someone who hasn't even acknowledged your worth. But what if I told you there's a better way? What if I told you that the key to regaining control of your emotions, your life, your worth, is to stop focusing on them and start focusing on you? It's time to stop engaging out of desperation. It's time to start engaging with purpose. When you focus on what you want for yourself, not what you're trying to get from someone else, you reclaim your power. This isn't about shutting off your feelings or pretending you don't care. It's about recognizing that your value does not depend on someone else's approval. When you place your worth in their hands, you are giving them the power to control your emotions. But when you learn to stand on your own, to recognize that you are whole and worthy with or without their attention, everything changes. The truth is, you are not defined by how others treat you. The love, the respect, the attention you seek, it can't be found in someone else. It can only be found within yourself. When you realize this, when you shift your focus from seeking external validation to building your own sense of self-worth, you stop chasing. You stop trying to force something that isn't meant to be. You stop feeling small, like you're begging for scraps of affection. You start living your life with purpose. And here's the beauty of it. When you engage with purpose, when you stop being driven by desperation, you become magnetic. People are drawn to you, not because you're desperate for their attention, but because you're living authentically with confidence, with strength. You stop fighting for someone's affection, and instead you create a life that draws the right people to you naturally. People don't want to be around someone who is desperate for their approval. They want to be around someone who knows their worth, who doesn't need anyone to validate them because they already validate themselves. Engaging with purpose means aligning your actions with your values. It's about stepping into a life where you set the direction. You stop waiting around for someone else to fill the emptiness inside of you. You fill it yourself with your own dreams, your own goals, your own passions. When you start living for yourself, not for someone else's attention, you stop looking for external fixes to make you feel better. You become your own source of power. It's hard at first, I know. It's hard to shift the focus away from someone who holds so much of your emotional energy. But the more you focus on yourself, the more you begin to see how much power you've been giving away. When you stop giving them that power, you start to realize just how strong you really are. You can't keep chasing after someone who isn't seeing you for who you are. You can't keep putting your life on hold, hoping they'll come around. It's time to take your life back. When you stop chasing, you stop feeling helpless. You stop waiting for someone to choose you, to validate you, and you begin to choose yourself. You begin to honor your own worths. You start creating a life that is filled with purpose, a life that doesn't need anyone else's validation to feel complete. And when that happens, you will realize that you are enough, exactly as you are, with or without their attention. So stop chasing. Stop fighting for validation. Start living for yourself. When you engage with purpose, when you reclaim your power, your peace, and your sense of worth, everything changes. You will no longer be dependent on someone else's attention to feel whole. You'll begin to realize that the only validation you need is your own. And that's when you'll find the strength, the confidence, and the peace you've been looking for all along. You feel it, don't you? That deep ache when you're ignored, dismissed, or overlooked. It's like a sharp sting in your chest, that feeling of being invisible, like you don't matter. You can almost hear that voice inside you. Why doesn't he see me? Why can't he just recognize my worth? You want to prove it to him. You want him to know how valuable you are, to show him that you deserve attention, respect, and love. You bend over backward, trying to show your worth through every action, every word, every look. But here's the hard truth. The validation you're seeking from him, it's never going to fill that void. The truth is, the more you chase validation from someone else, the more you lose sight of the one thing that can truly set you free. Your own validation. When you base your worth on someone else's approval, you give them control over how you feel about yourself. You let their actions, whether they acknowledge you or not, become the measuring stick by which you judge your value. And in doing so, you lose yourself. You lose your pace. You lose your power. What if I told you that the only validation you need, the only one that truly matters, is the one you give yourself? What if I told you that the moment you stop waiting for someone to confirm your worth is the moment you reclaim your life? This is the breakthrough. This is the shift you need to make. The power has always been in your hands. It's hard, I know. When someone you care about ignores you or makes you feel like you're invisible, it shakes you. You start to question everything. Am I not enough? Why can't he see my worth? But I want you to stop for a second and really think about this. His inability to see your value is not a reflection of who you are. It's a reflection of where he is in his own life, his own issues, his own inability to appreciate what's right in front of him. But that's not your problem. Your worth does not depend on his ability to see it. You've been looking outside yourself for something that has always been inside you. You've been searching for someone else to tell you that you matter, that you're good enough, that you're worthy of love and respect. But you already know this deep down. The moment you stop seeking validation from the outside world, you begin to realize that you are already whole. You are already worthy. You are already enough. When you learn to validate yourself, when you stop needing someone else to tell you that you're enough, something incredible happens. You regain your power. You stop giving someone else the authority to determine your worth. You stop relying on someone else's opinion to decide how you feel about yourself. You get to decide. And once you realize that, everything changes. You stop chasing after love, affection, or approval that isn't coming from a place of respect. You stop contorting yourself, changing who you are, or hiding parts of yourself just to make someone notice you. You stand in your truth. And when you do that, you attract the right people, the right energy, and the right love. Because love that is built on your validation, not someone else's, is the only love that will ever truly satisfy. This isn't just about not needing approval from one person. It's about setting the foundation for a life where your worth is never up for debate. It's about stepping into a version of yourself that is grounded, that doesn't need to be constantly reassured or validated by others. It's about knowing that you are enough, not because they say you are, but because you say you are. And here's the most beautiful thing. When you stop needing someone else's approval to feel good about yourself, you give yourself the freedom to just be. You stop overthinking every interaction, every text, every moment. You stop waiting for their acknowledgement to feel at peace. And when you stop needing that validation, you stop caring about their indifference. You rise above it and you step into your full power. The hardest part is letting go of the need for validation. But once you do, you will never feel small again. You will never feel invisible again. You will own your worth, and that will change everything. Because when you validate yourself, when you truly believe in your worth, no one can ever take that away from you. You know that feeling all too well. The quiet ache when someone pulls away, when their attention shifts and you're left grasping for something that isn't there. The sting of being ignored, it hits deep, doesn't it? It shakes you. For a moment you wonder if you'll ever feel whole again, if you'll ever regain that piece of yourself that feels lost in their absence. It's like you're stuck in limbo, caught between holding on and the painful realization that maybe it's time to let go. But here's the hard truth. Moving on isn't about giving up. It's about reclaiming your life. When you're in the midst of it, the silence, the uncertainty, it feels like the end. Like everything is crumbling around you and you can't escape it. But the truth is, it's not the end of your world. It's the beginning of your next chapter. And that chapter, it's yours to write, but only if you're willing to move on. I know it's not easy. Letting go of someone or something that mattered to you, whether it's a relationship, a friendship, or an expectation, feels like a betrayal of your own heart. It feels like you're leaving something behind, and in doing so, you're choosing to walk away from a future you thought was possible. But what if that future is still waiting for you, just beyond the pain? What if the act of moving on is the thing that frees you to step into something greater, something that is actually aligned with your true self? You don't have to keep clinging to what's slipping away. Moving on is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It's the ultimate act of self-respect. It's the decision to take control of your life instead of letting someone else's actions control your happiness. When you stop waiting for someone else to change, when you stop giving them the power to define your worth, that's when you regain your peace. That's when you take back the reins of your own story. You see, it's not about cutting ties out of anger. It's not about holding grudges or trying to prove a point. Moving on is about freeing yourself. It's about taking a step back, looking at the situation, and realizing that you don't need to be tied to something that doesn't serve you anymore. You don't need to stay in a place where you're not valued, where you're constantly questioning your worth. You deserve better than that. It's in the act of moving on that you create space for healing, for growth, for new opportunities. Moving on doesn't erase the past. It doesn't take away the memories or the feelings you had. It just frees you from the weight of holding on to something that's already gone. It allows you to embrace what's next with an open heart, to step into the future with the clarity that you deserve, to be in a place where you're valued, where you're seen for who you truly are.
I know the idea of moving on sounds daunting. It feels like walking into the unknown. But let me tell you something. The unknown is not a void. It's a possibility. The moment you let go of the past, you make room for something better. And I'm not talking about just any kind of better. I'm talking about the better that comes when you've reclaimed your power, your peace, and your sense of self. I'm talking about the better that comes when you stop settling for less than you deserve and start living for what you actually want.
And the most beautiful part, moving on doesn't just open up space for new things to come in. It opens up space for you to become the best version of yourself. The version of you who doesn't rely on anyone else's actions to determine how you feel. The version of you who's ready to stand tall knowing that you are worthy of everything you've ever dreamed of, whether or not anyone else is part of that dream. You are not defined by someone else's behavior. You are defined by your ability to move forward, to reclaim your life, and to create a future that reflects who you are meant to be. So take that step. Don't look back. Letting go isn't the end. It's the beginning. The beginning of you finding your peace, your power, and your true self. And when you do, you'll realize that moving on wasn't just the right choice. It was the only choice that would ever allow you to step into the life you were always meant to live. You're standing at the crossroads, aren't you? On one side, there's the life that's been defined by someone else. You've built so much of your world around them, their opinions, their attention. And now when things feel off balance, when the silence grows too loud, you start to feel lost. You start to wonder, who am I without them? You feel like a part of you is missing, as if you've given so much of yourself away and now you're unsure how to find your way back. But I need you to hear this. You were never meant to revolve around anyone else. The life you've built, the one that feels like it's crumbling, wasn't meant to be built on someone else's expectations, their validation, their approval. It was always meant to be yours. From the beginning, your life was meant to be founded on your own passions, your own dreams, and your own worth. Not on how much someone else notices you or how they choose to show up. You were not meant to wait for someone to give you permission to live fully. You were meant to create a life that excites you, that gives you purpose, that makes you feel alive, whether or not anyone else is there to witness it. And yet, here you are, feeling empty because the validation you've been seeking hasn't come, questioning your worth because the attention you wanted never showed up. But here's the shift. The life that will truly fulfill you can't be based on someone else's presence or absence. It's time to stop building your worth on the whims of others. It's time to start building your life around what matters to you, your passions, your dreams, your calling. I know it's hard. I know it feels like you've invested so much into this other person or this other relationship, and letting go feels like losing yourself. But the truth is, you have always been whole. You were whole before anyone else entered your life, and you will be whole when they leave. The only thing that makes you feel incomplete right now is the fact that you've placed your entire sense of fulfillment in someone else's hands. You've given them the power to shape how you feel about yourself, and that power has always been yours to take back. So what do you do now? You start building the life you've always wanted for yourself. The life that excites you. The life that gives you energy, purpose, and a deep sense of fulfillment. When you begin to focus on what you want, without needing anyone else to validate it, you start to remember who you really are. Your worth isn't defined by someone else's approval. It's defined by the love, respect, and passion you give to yourself. You begin by asking yourself, what do I want from life? Not what they want, not what others expect of you, but what you need to feel truly alive. What lights a fire inside of you? What makes your heart race with excitement? It could be your career, your passions, your creativity, or your journey to self-discovery. Whatever it is, this is your time to put yourself at the center. To pour your energy into the things that fill you up, not the things that drain you. And as you begin to fill your life with meaning by pursuing your own dreams, by investing in your own growth, by seeking your own happiness, you will realize something incredible. You become whole on your own. You are no longer waiting for someone to come along and complete you. You're already a complete. You're building a life that excites you, a life that stands on its own, one that doesn't need anyone else's validation to be worthy. And this is the breakthrough. You will never be at the mercy of someone else's presence or absence again. Whether they show up or not, whether they see you or not, you'll be moving forward with a life of purpose that stands on its own. You will find that the moment you stop waiting for someone to give you meaning, you will give meaning to yourself. And in that, you will attract everything you need. People who see your worth, opportunities that align with your vision, and a future that excites you. This is your life, your journey, and no one else has the power to make or break it. The only person who can truly fulfill you is you. And when you build your life on your own terms, when you fill it with things that give you purpose, no one else's presence will ever define your worth again. You will stand strong, whole, and confident, and the world will finally see the power that you have always had inside you.